Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and it's a great honor, privilege, joy to be sitting with someone who is immersed in the Dev Bhasha, Sanskrit. As professor of Sanskrit, he has shared his wisdom and knowledge in the University of IOWA with students, also on classical Indian religions with Department of Religious Studies. His contribution has been immense, and what is also inspiring and fascinating is to see that he has one side of his business card printed in Hindi which says Shree Frederick Smith Agni Kumar Vidya Vachaspati, and also it says Satyamev Jayate. So we begin by Vidya Vachaspati title. What is the genesis of this with Professor Smith, as I have the pleasure of welcoming you here for this conversation. Let us begin by your initial call it foray or interest or inclination towards Sanskrit. You grew up here in America, so the environment was not Sanskrit friendly.
No. Yes, thank you. I did grow up in the U.S. I grew up in the state of New Mexico, and there was really nobody there who knew anything about Sanskrit or India, but I started having dreams about India when I was 4 years old, even place names that I had no business knowing. So when I got old enough, I thought there must have been some kind of purva karma involved. So I went off to India when I was about 18 years old. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just inquisitive in learning if you still recollect what kind of dream was that.
I know very well, but I'm not talking about it on the air. Okay. But yes, I do recollect because I've had those dreams many times. And but yes, so when I was still a teenager, I went to India. I ended up in Madras, where I became a student at Madras Christian College. Eventually, I did my master's at Pune University Center for Advanced Study in Sanskrit, and studied with many pundits in Pune. I was in Pune for about 8 years, and eventually took a position as a researcher at the Deccan College in Pune. And then I came back to U.S. and did my PhD at the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, which had an excellent Sanskrit department in those days.
Now, when someone from America decides to go to India, even Indian American kids, when they decide to go back and do something in India, their parents are not comfortable. So in your case, the whole cultural upbringing was different. And what was the reaction of or response from your parents? Also, when you came back, did they find that you are kind of not as in sync with them as they would expect you to be?
Yes, if in English there was a term for ulta pulta, it would be what it was. Everything was like upside down. And but it's like my parents had a mantra that went like this: where did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? But eventually they adjusted, and they accepted what I did. After all, I did finish my PhD. I did get a job, and I studied in many years with pundits in different parts of India. And I know that this is not a path that that very, very few Indian kids who grew up in the U.S., they will never take a path like this. But for whatever reason, I ended up doing that, and it turned out, I think, for the best, at least for me. And I can say that if a person really has a desire for knowledge, some kind of jnana, vidya, sankalpa, if they make a kind of a firm desire to gain knowledge, then there's nothing that can stop them.
Talking about knowledge, talking about years when you were studying in India, and there is one side which is visible as our physical body, and there's another side which is subtle or which you cannot see by these naked eyes. Same way, the experiences that you were having in India while studying there, in the social setting or your food habits, etc., are one side. There's another side. Internally, was there something that you feel profoundly was experienced by you that you may feel like sharing?
Well, I was very fortunate that both my personal and professional interests really managed to come together in India, because I was involved with various teachers there, various gurus. I'm almost like Dattatreya with Chovis Guru, with 24 teachers like that, and a couple of them I showed up in my presentation a few minutes ago. And but yes, I was very interested in the spiritual side of things, and I definitely pursued that. I could never be a very great living. I could never be a great ashramite because I won't take orders very easily. But it was definitely a positive experience for me to travel around and go to these very powerful spiritual centers and study with these great pundits and Vaidikas, and at these amazing learning centers in Pune and in Braj and Chennai and Mysore, in Uttarkashi, places like this where I've spent a lot of time. So yes, I did learn a lot, and I was happy to take the darshan of so many of these great saints in India over the last 40 years. Yes.
So I find it very interesting. You said you were probably not fit to be in the ashram life because you won't take orders. Now that takes me to think about ego, and the whole orbit of our conversation is around spiritual area. So where surrender becomes very important. So in your case, how do you see? And again, not taking order, I can get that. But talk to me a little bit about this side as your understanding of where these Mahatmas were coming from grew, and were you in a position to look at yourself with a different light gradually?
Yes, absolutely. I was able to look at myself with different light all the time. There were some gurus, some teachers that I was extremely devoted to, but they did not require me to live in their ashrams. But one was in southern Maharashtra, and I can say that he probably influenced me to study the Veda even more than maybe I even realize. Just through absorbing his Shakti, his darshan, and like that. And another one of my teachers, this one that I showed you, the second person there, this person I referred to as Guru Maharaj in Simhachalam in Andhra Pradesh. He was, as I say, he was a Chiranjeev. He lived for maybe 375 years. I didn't say that in my talk now because I thought there's too many scientists for me to say such a thing. I mean, they would never believe anything like that, so I just didn't say it. But now I'm talking to a microphone, and the microphone has to believe me.
You're talking to me. I believe you.
But yeah, so Guru Maharaj was definitely Chiranjeev, and he didn't require you to live with him because what I really wanted to do was sit at the feet of these pundits and study Sanskrit and read texts, and look at manuscripts and attend yajnas and wander, go grooming in Himalaya like that. So, but in the course of doing all of this, I met many teachers whom I became very devoted to. I mean, it's not like I wouldn't follow their rules because all they would ever tell me to do was to meditate and become devoted to my gurus, to the Vedas, and to Bhagwan. That's the main instructions.
So, Smith, Professor Smith, allow me to ask you, the food habits also play an important role in the way you feel that we can experience on day-to-day basis also, and it becomes even more important when we are talking about spiritual growth. Talk to me a little bit about, did you change your food habits and you felt uncomfortable, or it just happened, or there was no need?
Well, I started to, as I grew up in an American in the state of New Mexico where everybody ate lots of mansahara, lots of meat. I began giving that up even at about, I suppose it was after I went to India the first time when I was a teenager. But I did become Shakahari, vegetarian, shortly after that. Even by the time I was 21, 22 years old, I was fully Shakahari. And I will not take egg or I won't even take any doodh, any milk now because, well, I have an allergy to it. But I would not even take. I used to have milk in my chai, but I won't even take that now. It's more of a philosophical thing. I mean, we're living in this earth, and why should and you know, even the Hindu Dharma says that there's complete circulation of energy, and you know, we cannot mistreat. And even in the organic food industry, there's a lot of mistreatment of the animals. So I want to stay away from that, as far as building up any papa karmas for myself. And so I have become fully vegetarian, and I have been influenced by India, by Hindu ideas. Yes.
Okay, now we come back with you to America. So you finished your study there, you came back here, you did your PhD, and while you are doing your PhD here in America, the academic environment, of course, is different than what it was in India. And many times we come across references where we hear that Western scholars do not perceive the essence of Indian knowledge or Hindu Sanatan wisdom, and they end up misinterpreting it here and there. What has been your experience on that front?
My experience is that that's an overstatement, that a lot of Westerners who spent lots of years in India and come back to study here, like all of my teachers at Pennsylvania, all of them had tremendous respect for Indian knowledge system and ways. I was lucky to be at Penn, where we had these wonderful people who had studied for a long time in India and had great regard for the system, and really taught from the traditional point of view of looking at the texts, looking at the manuscripts. And I mean, I spent a lot of time, I spent some time in Mysore in a Patashala, in a Veda Patashala, there memorizing Vedas. And of course I was unique in doing that. Not many people, not many Westerners would ever do such a thing, but I always had, you know, if there was ever one of my Western teachers at Pennsylvania, he always said, if you have a question, if you have a doubt, what the pundit says is right, more than the scholar. Then I accepted that, and I believe that that's true. Yes.
While you were doing your PhD, you were clear that you would like to become a professor, or was there something about your sadhana that you wanted to pursue?
I never thought about what I was going to do afterwards. I just did what the Bhagavad Gita said in chapter 2. You know, I had the adhikara for the knowledge, for the learning. I never thought even a single time what I would do after. I thought if I do what I want and I do it right, then Bhagwan will grace me somehow, and maybe I will survive in the world doing it. But you cannot think about anything except your you know, what comes to you. If you think about the future all the time, the present is going to be compromised.
So let me not think about the future, but yet I started thinking about whether you are finding this conversation interesting, whether there is something that you would love sharing more than where my questions are leading you. So that was my parallel thought pattern, which was sort of activated, and keeping that and bringing myself to the one pointedness with you, with the base of your exposure or understanding of Sanskrit, of Indian system of knowledge. When you were interacting with your friends who grew up here in America, and was there anything which you felt that the way they are enjoying, you now are not able to enjoy, and they perceive you in a way which is keeping you in a different bracket, and there is some sort of, if not wall, at least a kind of a distance which cannot be crossed?
Absolutely, you're right about that. But I was, you know, as I said, I mean, I loved Sanskrit knowledge. I loved studying with the pundits. I love my gurus. I love the Vedas. I had great experience in all of this. So if my friends looked at me as if I was from some alien planet like Mars, which they did, I mean, after I got back from all those years in India, and they look at me and they say, "Oh, what planet are you from?" And then I say, "Forget it," you know. But I have enough friends who can see my way, or who can I have enough common ground with in various spiritual and you know, Vaidika and different kinds of spiritual worlds here that I don't feel like I've lost anything. I mean, you know, if people don't want to hang out with me because I've been in India for 20 years, then that's okay. I mean, I don't, you know, I have enough to do with just reading my Vedas and doing my writing and doing my Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. You know, I'm happy enough. I'm happy doing that. I don't need to be around people who don't want to be around me.
And talk to me a little bit about having Satyamev Jayate on your business card, and also let me share with our viewers that you have one permanent abode at Uttar Kashi. How that came about?
Well, I've been working for a long time, for more than 10, 15 years on Mahabharata, and translating the last 5 Padavans for an American publisher, University of Chicago Press. And I decided I needed to shift away from Pune, from Braj, from wherever else I was staying, and work on Mahabharata in Mahabharata country, which happened to be the Himalaya, because there are 1,000 references to Himalaya in Mahabharata. So I went up there, I got myself a kutir, and I eventually got another kutir on the Ganga near Uttarkashi, because I had some friends there, and did my translations, and finally I bought some property. It's a trust I started, bought some property about 12, 15 kilometers up a mountainside near Uttarkashi, and built a house there. And it has turned out to be an amazing, beautiful place.
So here I'm sitting with a sage who has come from Himalayas. And Smithji, before we let you go, talk to me a little bit about the experience of translating Mahabharata. And indeed, Srimad Bhagavat is a jewel in Mahabharata. So relevance of that dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna for us.
Yeah, well, the Mahabharata is, as you know, there are many Hindu families who will refuse to even have a copy of Mahabharata in their house, because it is brother against brother, whereas they will all have Ramayana because it's brothers coming together instead of brothers splitting apart. So working on Mahabharata is always a little bit of a challenge, because everybody dies in the end. And but still, right now I'm involved in a really interesting project in Himalaya. There is one manuscript of a Garhwali language Mahabharata, in which I and a couple of others, in fact I was just working on it for a few weeks in Germany with my teacher from Srinagar in Garhwal, and a couple of other people, of translating this. And it's very, very much, it's very, in a way it's quite different from the Sanskrit Mahabharata. And so the way that Mahabharata, we have the Sanskrit text, but we have like 100 other Mahabharats all over India, in which there's a lot that's included from the Bhagavat there. So the life of Krishna, the death of Kansa, there's just a lot that's quite striking and different, and it's very elevating. It's really a beautiful experience to sit there with this only one, and there's nobody left, singers who know these things up in the Himalaya, and there's almost none of them left. This is kind of knowledge that's much more important than what I do, that should be preserved. But there's almost nobody who knows this Garhwali Mahabharata anymore, and so I'm glad that we have this one copy of a recited long text, and that we're working to translate it both into English and Hindi, and publish it. We've already got a contract with a publisher to do all of this. So but a lot of it is from Bhagavat. It's almost, it's an amazing piece of work. So it's a new project. Yeah.
It's great to be talking to Professor Smith, and once again, chanting is an integral part of the sadhana, and any of your favorite chant. And I also wanted to request you to share any moments of sitting with the Mahatma Ji, who you considered as your guru, or who you mentioned that was 375 years. So talk to me a little about, because I believe he's not talking in English. So how the communication was happening?
Well, he spoke a dialect of Hindi that seemed like it was old Awadhi. It's almost like it came out of Tulsidas. So he might have learned how to speak. He was quite educated from Kashi, and he sounded like Ramcharitmanas, which means that he might have been speaking that kind of Hindi when he was a child. And but he doesn't speak very much, and but he would give you direct knowledge if he wanted to do that. And he could definitely transfer Shakti to you, transfer energy, transfer light, luminosity to you at any given time. And you could not ask for it. You couldn't. If you asked for it, you were definitely not going to get it. And I mean, he once told me the strangest thing. He said, "The only people who have any opportunity for enlightenment in this earth are the ones who've been cursed by rishis in past births. Everybody else is a donkey." And so I thought, God, was I cursed by him in a past birth, or am I lost? I don't know. But he would say things like that. And one time I went with somebody else. I'd gone up to Himalaya. I had a dream about a devata up there. And I was in Pune at the time. And I went up there, and I found that devata. And I came down. It was the middle of winter, and it was very, very cold. And finally, I got to Benares, and I was with this friend of mine, and he was a doctor. And he said, "Well, you know, we've gotten very dehydrated from all this travel and the cold, and all I had was one thin Sholapur blanket. I didn't even have shoes." And he said, "We should have some eggs for breakfast because we need the protein." And I said, "Okay, you're the doctor." And then I decided a few days later I had to go back to Pune for some work, and he decided to go visit Guru Maharaj in Simhachalam. And he went down, and he had to climb up about 300-400 steps to get up to where he was staying. And he got up there and knocked on Guru Maharaj's door, and Guru Maharaj looked at him and said, "6 days ago you had an egg, get out." And he went back down to where he was staying, and he started purging. Every hour he purged for 24 hours. And then he went back up the next day, and and Guru Maharaj said, "Have you had enough? Is it gone?" And so you know, he had his ways of knowing things. So direct method. In the same way he could bring light, he could also get rid of your papakadamas if he saw that that's what they were, in a very direct and immediate way.
Talking to Professor Smith with so much experience and direct experiences of the kind which many people cannot understand. And as we move towards the concluding part, I am again reminded of your card where you say Satyameva Jayate, and the kind of world that we live in. Many people feel that truth is not a part of our day-to-day lives. Talk to me about Satyameva Jayate. Do you believe truth wins, is victorious, and anything that you feel is needed to align our lives with truth?
Yes, I do believe Satyameva Jayate, and I do believe the truth will definitely arise. There's an old concept in the Vedas called Satya. Satya Vachas, and this is that if your intention is strong enough, what you say will become true, but only if that arises from purity. If your purity is right, if your intention is right, then truth will have to arise. And I do believe that truth will arise. It has to. It has no other course, because mithya, asatya, will definitely dig its own grave, and only satya will survive in the end. How that happens, I don't know, because it doesn't look like it a lot of the time, but it has to. It just has to.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, definitely Satyameva Jayate. It will arise. We just have to know that deep in our heart.
Thank you very much, sir. Thanks to all of you for being with us. Namaste.